Not 4:30 yet. Sorry, we've got 1 minute. We can start late, we just can't start early.
All right, now we can open the meeting. All right. So we have with us Ms. Burzak, Mr. Miller, Rice, Hebert, Mr. Flitka, Pam Porter, Eric Herbert, and Chris. So let's get started. All right, first on the agenda, we have the meetings of minutes. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Okay. Do we have a second? All right, so the meetings have been approved.
If we could just get a voice vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On the vote. Roll wouldn't be necessary if you want to do a voice vote for minutes specifically.
Okay, go ahead.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, it's on the back of the other thing.
Okay, so new business is approval of a pole sign refacing on Cleveland through 3125. So do we have any staff like to comment on that, please?
Yeah, just a brief correction before hearing from the applicant. On packet page 12, the first page of the associated staff report, there was a slight error in which there's a typo that the zone district is D downtown district. It is C commercial district. All of the ordinance requirements and standards are accurate. It was just the district was listed incorrectly.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to present for the sign? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Megan York, the Chief Marketing Officer.
Would you like please come up to the podium and state your name and speak into the microphone? It should be on.
Certainly. Should I?
Maybe not. It should be.
But no. Can you hear me? Okay.
We can hear you, but it's not on. So for recording purposes, we need to have it on.
Test.
Thank you. Oh, my. Hello, my name is Megan Yor, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Sturgis Bank. We are interested in refacing our sign at our office on Cleveland Avenue to reflect the name of Sturgis Bank rather than St. Joseph Banking Center. We've achieved unified branding a lot quicker than I thought we would be able to, and it's basically the same thing we've done across the street here, downtown St. Joe.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from commissioners?
I have a couple. Just to clarify, the sign is staying exactly as it is, you're just refacing the front of it, or the both fronts to accommodate the new standardized logo.
Yes, we will be replacing the two panels, not the electronic portion,
Not the electronic version.
not the pole, just the panels.
So it'll be lit in the same fashion it was previously?
Yes.
Okay.
And we're not addressing any of the branding on the building right now.
Okay. Only question I had.
Do we have any further questions? For our applicant? Hearing none, do we have Any further discussion among commissioners? You may sit down, thank you.
I think it's appropriate. It's in a commercial area. Actually, one of our more heavily used commercial areas. It's isolated from residential exposure. I think it's an appropriate use for that location.
I agree 100%. I was thrown by there was a lot of, language in here about the LED portion. So if that's staying as it is that just in here for reference? Because assuming the previous sign met all those requirements that are included?
Correct. That's just in there for reference so that we're maintaining a clear record of the
Okay.
sign as it is. But those elements are not changing.
And then just to note, I'm not sure if it matters, but on packet page 27, 25-15.5, there's like a typo, shall no be illuminated. I think it's supposed to be not be illuminated. I don't know if that matters or not, but if that's a rule and regulation, it's showing up as no be illuminated instead of not. I thought we might want to fix that for
Thank
the
you.
record.
Understood. Thank you.
So Laura, assuming that has no impact on the wording, that edit.
Yeah.
But no, it's not going to. Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Birdsack.
Planning Commission moves to approve the subject sign permit application for the property located at 3125 Cleveland, PID 11-76-2700-0013-02-5 submitted by Monif Sign Group on behalf of Sturgis Bank and Trust, as the proposed sign is appropriate based on the factors of approval described in sections 25-33.1.b of the City of St. Joseph sign ordinance. All other factors as discussed by the Planning Commission and the findings of the City of St. Joseph staff report dated August 6, 2026, whereby are hereby incorporated by reference. And I would just like to state that we commented that we felt it was appropriate as presented and that no additional changes were necessary.
Okay, do we have any discussion of the motion?
Just gonna note for clarification, it's section, Kathy Burzak had mentioned the electronic census reports 25-15-5. It's actually section 25-18-5.
Oh, is that-
Just a correction on that, but
Okay, so is
the
it,
language is all appropriate, it's just the references. are-
so the reference in there per what was written in is incorrect? So we should probably correct that on the. You want me to,
I don't, it's not in the motion.
okay,
I think I just want to make sure that's clarified in case.
okay, thank you.
Does anybody want to second the motion? Support. Thank you. So those in,
We can do a roll call.
okay,
Commissioner Plica,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Chair Rick,
yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Ebert,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burzak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we move on to our next new business, which is a text amendment to the zoning ordinance. Is there anything that the staff would like to add to that in terms of the clarification?
The text amendments are largely the same as they have been presented previous, with the addition of the alley language, which was originally presented to the commission as an option to be added to the amendment at our last month's meeting. The definition has since been amended to form sort of a hybrid of options A and B, where it lists out all such streets which would be treated as alleys for the purposes of the zoning ordinance, while also detailing standards by which the zoning administrator may determine any other such public ways be also determined to function as alleys for zoning ordinance purposes.
Thank you. Ms. Burzak, go
I
ahead.
have questions for staff. Packet page 39. The definition under alley, the the definition under alley, that would be 1, 2, 3, 5 down, paragraph wise. The part in blue, for the purpose of this ordinance, the following public ways designated as streets shall be treated as alleys, with the exception that any property fronting on the public way shall treat it as a street unless otherwise provided. I wasn't sure what unless otherwise provided meant. I think what I understand is that it'll be treated as an alley, but for the purpose of address purposes, it will be called a street. Is that the correct assumption?
Yeah, so some of the streets which are listed within here do have homes on them.
Right.
Despite their otherwise function and
Right.
similarities to an alley. It's meant to serve as kind of a catch-all to sort of protect from any kind of outside other factors that may apply
So,
to recognize.
yeah, I understand that, but the way it's worded, unless otherwise provided, shall be treated as a street, then maybe sounds a little contradictory that they're not really being treated as alleys for the purpose of zoning. So I think better clarification would be proper front, because there are a lot of properties that front, like Vine, for instance, not Highland, but some of the others that are listed. And so I think a better clarification might be to say something like that they're treated as a street for the purpose of, for address purposes. However, from a zoning standpoint, would follow the setbacks as per alley requirements or something of that nature. Because when you say shall be treated as a street, then it makes it sound like you're going to use the zoning as if it was a street that then makes all of those a through lot.
So the
Way it's
intent is
worded.
for just the homes fronting onto the alley to treat it as a street. Is the intent of the language.
Okay, so it doesn't say for the homes fronting on it. So that's why I feel, okay, the property fronting on the public way shall treat it as a street unless otherwise provided. What is otherwise provided?
So if you look further down, the next sentence down, Lane Drive east of Langley Avenue, where properties front onto the common place, I think it was trying to clarify that.
It wasn't clear to me, so I'm wondering if it won't be clear to other people. If it was clear to everyone else, then that's fine, but it wasn't, I didn't find it as understandable that it was only the streets fronting on it calls it a street, but then everyone else calls it an alley that backs on it.
I suppose just ideating here, would it maybe help to, instead of saying fronting, because that may be confused to refer to the through lot fronting onto two streets, would it be helpful to maybe whose front yard fronts onto?
Maybe something of that nature. That's something I was wondering, yeah, that was one thing I was just, and then I think I had one more comment, if you bear with me to look for it. And then on the rear packet page 49, the definition for rear, the highlighted part in blue, see figure 2-8A, however, where adjacent properties fronts on the through lots, rear lot line, it is subject to the front building setbacks. So I felt that should have added unless the rear frontage is deemed an alley. Because if you say that for the purpose of where the properties fronts on the through lots, rear lot, that I think that we need to have something that calls out unless the rear frontage is deemed an alley, so that it's clear that the ones that you're exempting are being treated as alleys.
If I can interrupt for a minute, I don't think the public hearing was officially open, so if the chair could officially open the public hearing,
Oh.
we can continue on.
So I thought I was just asking him questions before we did that.
Well, I think, typically the public hearing would include anything.
Oh,
that would
okay.
happen.
Okay,
At this time, we open up the public hearing. Thank you.
so we ask our questions during the public hearing?
A lot of the discussion occurs. during the
Okay.
public-
So that was the only other thing I thought that it needed to clarify unless the rear frontage is deemed an alley.
Understood.
Do we have any other questions to staff? Before, are we doing this out of sequence here? We're gonna do questions to staff.
Yeah, so questions to staff and then, because staff is functionally the applicant, and then we would open for public comment. Close public comment, discussion, additional questions to staff as needed, for clarification purposes and then action on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it just, the public hearing procedures on page 35, it kind of lays it out. It's a little bit different format, but I think for following along is,
Okay,
so it's been opened, at which time the applicant, again, being staff, is asked questions by the commission. And once you're satisfied with that, the public can speak.
that's all I have.
Okay, anybody with questions to staff? Okay. This time I'll open the floor to the public. If anybody wishes to speak, come up to the podium, state your name clearly.
My name is Jack Sanderson, and I am a resident of Below Bluff Neighborhood Association. And I may still be the chairman of the Below Bluff Neighborhood Association, or I may not. My term has expired, but they haven't replaced me yet, so I don't know which I am, but anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing. I started this process out quite a number of years ago, and it's finally just getting here. But a little bit of my background, many of you know me because I used to be on this board for a number of years, but I see a lot of faces up here that I don't recognize that weren't there then, and I thank you for taking my place because I was on there long enough, thank you. But anyway, my business was such that I was involved in forensic engineering and ran a forensic engineering laboratory. Forensic engineering is looking at things and say why they went wrong and so forth. They worked for and against Whirlpool and manufacturers and places like that. But also in the latter part of my career, got involved in a number of zoning and issues. And so I have testified in court many, many times, coming close to a couple hundred times in the course of my career. And in some of those I've been qualified as an expert. I think in a couple of cases I was qualified as an expert in the area of zoning. So I have a little background. I also worked as a zoning administrator and a building inspector many years ago, long before I started my other business. So a little bit of background in that. I've also always been involved or interested in zoning, specifically as it applies to my neighborhood down below the bluff. We're a neighborhood that problems seem to come up continually, but there's a very good reason for that. It's because people want to live there and they want a lot of things there. And so they're continually pushing the limits of the zoning ordinance, sometimes with justification, a lot of times without. And so I've gotten involved in representing a lot of those people, or at least counseling those people on things they probably can achieve and things they probably can't achieve. So anyway, a few years ago, I noticed that there was diagram in our zoning ordinance, which was, in my opinion, incorrect. And so I had discussed many times with our previous zoning administrator the problems with that. She and I pretty much agreed to disagree over the years. That she was right, and I said I was right. You both can't be. But anyway, eventually, a little over a year ago, June 21st, I think it was, I emailed the city manager a very lengthy explanation as to why that diagram was incorrect and that it needed to be corrected. And so it was batted around in City Hall for a while and eventually got back to me and said, yes, she agrees, it is wrong, it does need to be fixed. And in my presence, ordered the zoning inspector to create a new diagram. So, sounds good. Went on for a period of time, and then last December, it was scheduled to come up on the agenda then. And somehow or other, that new diagram didn't manage to get attached to the packet. And nobody knew where it was. And so it got held over and she left. And then they couldn't find it and somebody else had to make one because there probably never was one. Anyway, I was told that the new illustration would be some consultation with me and things that need to be done and not need to be done with it. And kind of never happened. Eventually, then we got to some point that there was a new drawing and we had a number of meetings that this was brought up at. And eventually, I believe in late March, early April, it came finally to a public hearing that it would be brought up. And unfortunately, our former head of the Plan Commission here decided to not call for public comment during the course of a public hearing, which is a little unusual. And so our new zoning administrator, who was at his first meeting, said, after we got a little bit past that, said, wait a minute, we forgot something here. And there was a kind of a debate whether we could go back and we could reopen the hearing and so forth, and we changed. That the vote had already been taken. And so once the vote's been taken, it's kind of moot, as I understand it, to reopen a public hearing. So it didn't. So it's gotten batted back and forth a little bit. And now eventually it's come to you. But there is some question of what happened to that last vote that you had. That was to go to the city commission, but never did. As far as I know, it's still hanging out there someplace. And so I'm wondering if you have resolved that issue, number one. And number, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to understand, trying to move this along is this germane to what we're talking about now? The background is helpful, but do you have comments on what we are voting on today or what the proposed changes are?
I do, but I wonder if it would be interesting or of value to you to know how this really came to a head. Because it does affect a question that I'm going to ask you, or I can ask you right now.
If it applies to me, I'm happy, but I think it's probably going to be a question to staff, but.
Well, you're the one that's voting on it, so it does apply to you. Could any of you here volunteer to answer what you think the difference is to someone who has a through lot, whether the street behind him is considered a street or an alley? Because there are implications to that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if any of you know that, because I haven't been to all the meetings because I couldn't get to some of them, but I've read all the minutes and so forth. And it doesn't look like that's really ever been discussed. And if it has, so be it. But I'd be interested in any of you who are going to vote for that, know what the difference is.
Ms. Burzak,
Yes,
you're
I've
happy to.
been very involved in this since it's come to our attention. And just to comment, the meeting that was voted on, it was immediately rescinded, the vote, and we asked for public comment. And at the time, no one wished to speak. We all realized we'd made an error and no one intentionally didn't have public comment. We all felt terrible about the situation, that it was, just a mistake on all of our parts, not just the chair at the time. None of us addressed it, and so it was immediately rescinded, and we asked for public comment. However, do we understand the difference between a through lot? Yes, we do. We've spent numerous months discussing it. There is a difference. So if, for instance, a street is designated a street, then if, like, for instance, on Vine and Highland and those streets, then the back of the property, the setback would change to 15 feet instead of a backyard rear 30. And then you would require to utilize the front yard fence height, which is much lower than a lot of people currently have. So it would therefore make a lot of residential lots non-compliant. So we discussed that in much detail. You can go back to any of the recorded meetings and hear those comments. And so we talked about the purpose of, you know, the best way to proceed with this. I will say, I recently had construction at my home, and this was before the through lot was in the publications, and my residential home required the 30-foot setback, which we abided by. And so if you changed it now to where I could have had a 15-foot setback, it would be a lot different. And it also would require then the fencing not be the height that I need and bought the house based on. So there are a lot of people that are impacted by through lots. And we were trying to do our best to make sure that we were covering it in a way that made it understandable for moving forward and for making places that from a zoning standpoint for many, many years have always been considered alleys, even though the name might say street behind it, to still be compliant and not a non-compliant lot. And so that's basically, you know, the conversations that we've had thus far. Staff can add to it if I neglected to, or additional commissioners, because there have been lots of discussions on this. So I think we all know what a through lot is now from months and months of discussion.
Okay,
So
Do you have any changes to what's being proposed?
My real question was, what are the advantages and disadvantages to the owner, not what it is?
So
So a little bit that you covered.
So disadvantage and advantage is that, if you are a through lot, and it is a through lot where it's a street to the front and the back, and you have a 6-foot high fence because you thought it was a rear lot, then it will not be compliant because it will act as the front yard requirement for fencing. So, so that's the disadvantage in terms of, you know, someone that may want to have that taller fence not being compliant in regard to that in the rear lot, because the rear lot is really a through lot, which means it follows the front yard requirements. So.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add to that?
Do you have anything to add to the text amendment that we should propose at this time? That is the purpose of our meeting.
I think the
this
first
time.
thing is that the map is, that illustration that I pointed out does not need to be replaced at all. And if it is replaced, it ought to be replaced with the one that's right, because the one that's been proposed is not.
Can you define why it's not correct so that staff can comment on it, so that we can do that?
I already have to them, but I will repeat it again. The diagram illustrates front and back lots. Front yard and rear yard lots. But it appears to be based on where the structure is on the lot. And that is not the criterion. The criterion is, where is the house number? And all you have to do is put an X on it, and a diagram, a little thing underneath it that says front of the house, denoted by X. Then you can say, this is the front yard, that is the rear yard. Other than that, you really can't. Ms. Burzak, you know this, you have a house 4 doors from you that would qualify from that. Is the house next to Dustin's house and Mary Stover's house. It's in between there. It looks like it's a vacant lot, but there's a house clear in the back of the property. It is about 4 or 5 feet off of Vine Street. Which, according to that ordinance, then would make the front yard on Vine Street, the rear yard would be on Lions Park Drive. I just use that as an example because it's right near you.
Their front door though faces Lions. It's
Front door
just
doesn't
set
have
back
anything to do with
further.
Front door, you show me
Their-
an ordinance.
So their
front door.
address is Vine, not, that house is Vine, the address?
It could be either.
I thought their address is Lions, so that's the
Their address
difference.
is Lions Park, but you know why? Because there's a post out in front that has their address on it. But where the location is, under this diagram, they could be either, or it could not be their front yard, it would be their rear yard. And that's what I'm saying, it's a very simple thing. All you have to do is add that in there, and then you have corrected that drawing. All the other stuff that goes along with it, changing the yards definitions and so forth, is really kind of unnecessary, frankly.
So there is clarification somewhere, right, staff? Can you guys comment on the address portion of the?
Yeah, so my perspective as staff would be that the figures 2AA and 2AA continued are not designed to represent that specific ordinance definition. I think that specific ordinance definition was perceived in the development of this diagram to be kind of intuitive. And that kind of additions may make the diagram more cluttered and confusing visually for the purposes of seeing the yards as they exist.
You could call it a drawing, you could call it an illustration. Illustration sounds better because it's supposed to illustrate what the text says. And if you read the ordinance, you will find that if there's a conflict between the text and the diagram, the text controls. And the text is what says the front of the property is denoted by where the address is, what street it's addressed on. And therefore, that's not right. The illustration is an illustration that is incorrect.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like for us to consider on
Maybe
this?
One other question, it's kind of a technical
Let's
question.
see. Dalton, do you have any comments on the diagram? Is there
In
a,
my opinion, the diagram correctly reflects the information it is intended to reflect. If the commission would like to request additional information to be added to it, we can accommodate that and forward those concerns to the city commission as well as part of your motion.
Mr.
Other
Sanders?
questions? Yes.
Go ahead.
This is a public hearing. I noticed, first of all, it's not listed as a public hearing on the agenda. I didn't think they saw anything else that called it a public hearing. How does anybody know that, their property is being affected? Just a few years ago, I requested a rezoning of an area on Main Street where I had an office. And all the offices on Main Street on the lower level were empty because nobody wanted to rent them. And I requested that they change that to allow residential use on the first floor, which was passed unanimously and did. But at that public hearing, all the people who were affected were notified. And I'm curious as to why they don't seem to be on this. They're not notified even in the documents that pertain to this. And I never got any notification of it, nor did several of my neighbors who I checked with today, who would be directly affected. Isn't that the period?
There's no legal requirement. When it's a zoning ordinance amendment, it applies throughout the city, so there's not the notice requirement that goes out to specific individuals. So it depends on the context of the zoning ordinance amendments. There was a public notice published in the paper, and the text in the agenda does note public hearing is being held today. The public hearing procedures are laid out in the agenda packet.
Okay, then I don't have any further questions. Anybody have any questions for me? Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Is there anyone else who would like to present regarding this? Okay, so we'll close the public portion of the meeting.
You will need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
We have a second.
Who seconded?
Mr. Plitka. Okay. Public hearing closed.
Oh, so roll call,
We're going to do a voice vote for that.
those voice votes. Okay. All in favor?
No.
All those in
Aye.
favor?
Roll call, you got it.
All right, we'll call.
Let's see. Commissioner Ebert,
Yes.
Vice Chair Burzak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Plickta,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Chair Rurick,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is accessory dwelling.
I think you can continue your discussion now.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
we have to still finish the,
Correct. So that was a motion to close the public hearing. We are now on to commissioner
we're
discussion
done.
and action on item.
All right. Commissioners, does anybody have any comments?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to Jack's point that, if noting where the address in terms of the drawings are, makes it clearer for the public to understand. I can fully support that. I'm all about clarity.
I think too that from the graphic standpoint, if the F front has an asterisk after it where the front is in the legend, and then below that, the asterisk says front designates address side of residence, that in itself would depict which side of the unit, where the address side of the residence is located and not further clutter, but it would be part of the figure for the purpose of clarity.
Any other comments from commissioners?
does staff think that the comments could be incorporated if a motion was made?
Yes, so as part of your motion, you can include any recommended amendments to the city commission. And then staff would formalize those into a report along with the copy of the minutes. So they would know that you have recommended those amendments and then they can formalize those as a part of their motion.
Thank you.
Alternatively, if you would prefer to see the language as modified, you can request that be brought back at the next meeting.
So I am fine with, if other people agree that the clarity, because again, I think it's important that it reads well for everyone to completely understand what the intent is. So, I would be fine voting on it if the language could be adjusted for packet page 39 as discussed to make it clearer about the frontage. That's, however you want to word that, to make it clearer that it's only the house fronting on that public way will consider it such as a street. And then on packet page, wherever it was.
49.
Do you remember? Packet page 49, just at the end of it, I think it's important to add the comment about unless the rear frontage is deemed an alley, just so it's very clear that it's deemed an alley in terms of how you are designating it, how staff is designated it from a zoning standpoint. And I would just like to say that I appreciate all of, from Mr. Sanderson's discussion, this has taken quite a while to get to this point, but I appreciate all of numerous staff's, time that was involved in putting this together and all of the renditions we've had and back and forth. It's very much appreciated because I think what we have now really better, makes it better understandable to everyone that would be reviewing this. So I appreciate all of everyone's time. And I think we all appreciate everyone's time.
Okay, does anybody have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend approval of the ordinance to amend Article 2 definitions, Section 2.3 definitions, Article 5, Schedule of District Regulations, Section 5.2, Schedule of District Regulations, and Chapter 12, Section 12-4, Residential Fences to modify definitions for rear lot lines and rear yards as they relate to through lots. The definition of alley to clarify which public ways are treated as alleys for zoning purposes, updated associate figures for clarity in the City of St. Joseph zoning ordinance, and to amend the fence ordinance to clarify how a through lot would interact with fence heights requirements as proposed by staff findings that recommend language as satisfied all the standards set forth under section 22.3 of the City of St. Joseph zoning ordinance based upon the planning commission's discussions, adding those comments as amended to the document as presented, including the adjustment to the figures as discussed, and that the findings of the City of St. Joseph staff report dated August 6, 2026, which are hereby incorporated by reference.
Support.
There we go. All right. So
Discussion.
any further discussion? Any changes to the? Okay. So a roll call? Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Herbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Hebert,
Yes.
Vice Chair Brzak,
Yes.
Commissioner Rice,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Plitka,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Chair Ulrich,
Yes.
motion passes.
Ordering.
You need it.
You let some.
No, you don't. Mr. Miller had to leave. So. Okay. All right, next on our agenda is some old business. This is the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units. Staff, you'd like to
Yes,
comment on the survey that we did? Thank you.
absolutely. So the survey on ADUs ran for 2 weeks, starting on July 2nd. It closed, did not accept any more submissions as of midnight last night. Staff have provided a brief analysis of some of the data. We've got bar charts for the rating scales 1 to 5, in which 1 is strongly disagree, 5 is strongly agree. We have some pie charts showing the demographic data that was obtained as part of the survey. Shows certain information. We've included a few, raw data set has been provided to commissioners in terms of all of the additional comments that respondents gave. We've included a few in here for reference. Based upon the data and any discussion tonight, staff is requesting a recommendation from the commission, some form of directive as to whether or not to proceed with drafting of ADU text amendments or to prepare a presentation to the city commission regarding the commission's findings, if they believe them to not be an appropriate next step, along with any alternatives as suggested.
Okay, thank you.
Claire, so 1 on the first question that you have at the bottom of packet page 1 of 12. 40% is that they strongly agree that they would not want the,
So specifically for that one, that question was, I would be interested in adding one.
Yeah.
So for 1, that would be strongly disagree. They would not be interested
so,
in adding an accessory dwelling unit to their property. Whereas 5 would be strongly agree.
Yeah, I was a little surprised how clearly split down the middle it was.
Yeah, the data is quite polarized. My kind of making certain assumptions, just trying to analyze the data as staff, it's possible there may have been some selection bias based on the sample size we were able to obtain, it's likely the respondents were had stronger feelings about accessory dwelling units as opposed to maybe the average resident. It's likely some of the most civically engaged individuals were the ones who were aware of the survey and responded to it. So that could possibly explain some of the polarization that we see in the data set.
Love them or hate them.
So would you say that the survey was representative of the residents?
So it does capture a diversity of residents within locations. I wasn't able to put together I had envisioned sort of a heat map of the street intersections, but I wasn't able to get that together in time. But just kind of looking at them, it seemed to capture people from a variety of areas within the city. So it is sort of a microcosm of city residents, likely some of the most civically engaged, as I stated. I do believe it to be at least somewhat representative, but does come with that asterisk that we are going to see some selection bias of people who are having more stronger opinions, regardless of the direction those opinions may be going.
Yeah, I thought, I read through the comments from that, what you sent us the end of July there, and I thought some of those comments were pretty interesting.
We have any other questions to staff?
Wait a minute, I do this, since we just got it, the finished product.
Excuse me. So if we were to recommend that you start drafting up language for this stuff, are there other specific directives that you're looking for first, or are you looking for, hey, just go ahead, take a crack at it, and then we'll discuss from there next time or whatever?
That would be an appropriate way to proceed, but it would be certainly helpful if you have any strong opinions now in terms of regulations you would like to see included, whether that be allowing additional height or additional requirements limiting occupancy or setbacks or any other additional limitations you may like to see. Kind of the questions we have listed in the ordinance, if the commission, based on that data and your opinions, you've kind of made a determination as to what you think would be most appropriate, kind of knowing that up front would certainly help in the drafting process.
So from that standpoint, it seems that the survey has provided some context for some of the things you just mentioned, like, for instance, packet page 4, the graph at the bottom, it's very clear that, well, the two graphs there, limit maximum size, seem to be a lot of people in favor of limiting the size, also limiting maximum occupancy. They support on-street parking. It seems like a little more than don't. So that one's not as cut and dry. That could go either way. Overwhelmingly, they want the owner on the property. So I think from a standpoint of some of those things that we were trying to find out, the survey participants provided very clear guidelines for what they would like to see. So since we really wanted the survey in order to determine that, speaking for myself, not the rest of the commissioners, I would think that we would want to somewhat follow what the survey results show in terms of those things.
I do think we should also make sure that are generally agreed. And again, as city staff pointed out, it's 94 respondents, so it is pretty small, 1% of the city, right? And we should also just make sure that any recommendations we're providing are in alignment with what other cities have done that have shown to make implementation actually useful and constructive. Whereas some cities, when they've implemented it, it's not really done much to help anything. And I don't know if that's because of specific community feedback that they put in the restrictions that make it not feasible or something like that. So I just want to make sure we're careful and we're taking into account, hey, yeah, maybe slightly more people prefer this restriction, but if that actually ends up severely limiting the usefulness of allowing ADUs, maybe that's not something we should follow, but just something to consider.
Just as a comment, I think one of the reasons we did the survey was to see, is there interest in this at all? And I guess the answer to that is yes, there is some interest. So I think you combine that with looking at what other towns our size have done, things like that. Maybe, you know, that would be, I think should be the basis of whatever it is we decide to propose. Success, I don't know what that means. 20 people grab a hold of this and do this in a city, 500. You know, I mean, it really depends on the economics in the region where you live. What, you know, is it really feasible to, you know, put in an in-law suite or something like that, or one of these ADUs? It certainly makes more sense if someone has a large property and is in an area where people are priced out. Maybe they have a family member or somebody else who wants to live, you know, live on that property as well. And I guess we just need to see, I would say, some sort of a draft version of what this, you know, what this could look like.
I was happy to see that. Yeah, it seems like even though it's polarized, it's not like all respondents are heavily against it.
Yeah.
There's no matter any new ordinance we propose, right? There's going to be people who support and people who don't support it. So you can never make everyone happy. But I'll say, yeah, using some of these results as guidelines, I think is good. One thing that I will say, I think would be good to make sure we have is, yeah, somehow addressing, you know, parking was a big concern for a lot of people. And I think one thing to make sure that we allow would be for a detached one, the height limit increased, because right now I believe our detached structures is a 14-foot height limit. So then that will allow it to be above garages, which is one of the most, I feel like, useful and common uses of ADUs, because then you're not taking up any more footprint. You're just building up a little bit, make better use of land. So I think that's a really good use. One thing we should try to make sure we do, at least.
Any other commissioners with comments?
And as we've discussed before, the short-term,
Thank you.
the short-term rentals, that's obviously one of the main things people are worried about, even, which in the survey we indicated, as discussed in a previous planning commission meeting, that would not be allowed. But we clearly need to find a way to help ensure that is followed somehow as best we can.
Okay, so direction from staff is to decide whether or not to proceed with drafting an ordinance. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I think we might need to see it one more time. Now that we have these results, maybe come back with, you know, with a draft of what you think what all of staff thinks would be the best way to move forth. And, you know, again, you know, looking at other communities and the input from the survey, to determine the best methodology and what we want to include and what we want to not include. And, then, you know, but I would say everything that's been said, today, including the weekly rentals as well as the 30-day rental, because the 30-day rental does not benefit in any way middle income housing, which is the whole purpose of ADUs, not to provide someone additional income on a weekly or monthly basis. So I think somehow that would need to be incorporated in there too. So I would say if staff could draft something up that addresses combining what communities our size might have had worked successfully with the input we gained. then I think we could entertain the next meeting, being able to, maybe vote on it.
So that I understand your recommendation, is your recommendation that we draft language and an additional analysis on the data and planning commission discussion as not a public hearing, or to hold a public hearing for the draft
Well,
language?
I guess, we could hold a public hearing, but if the draft needs to be kind of what we're gonna include, what we think is important to include, so we may need that step prior. So it might take 2 months to get to the finish line in terms of us voting on it, if that's the case, because it seems like you would want to draft up the intent of what we want to move forward with, and then we may have discussion and changes that then would need another month to get then into the, fine tuned and into the public realm.
Possibly similar to the way we handled the alley definition, where it was
Yes.
presented, you recommended changes, and then we brought it back as a public hearing at the next meeting.
Yes,
Understood?
that would be, just speaking for myself, I'm not sure if everyone else feels the same way or not, so.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take us 2 or 3 or 4 months probably, once we get public comment to rewrite the draft. It'll take a bit.
So I know a couple months ago we had, there was a list of like, hey, when we first kind of started talking about this again was, here's a bunch of potential regulations or restrictions. Here's a couple concerns. Is the intent to just basically refine that and then be like, yes or no on each of those, or how we want to do it, and then draft ordinance language? Or you're trying to come back next month with draft ordinance language first?
So it is a matter of what the planning commission is comfortable with.
Mhm.
As staff, I would be comfortable with either method of, if we want to do it as a formal public hearing where I draft language and then you all can critique it, submit a recommendation, table it as necessary. If you would rather to take a more iterative approach in which I draft language, we have it as just a reference, as a discussion item, we pick it apart a bit more. Maybe if we anticipate a lot of changes, that might be appropriate. If we expect the draft to be quite iterative, possibly. If we anticipate a more possibly streamlined approach, then proceeding with a more formal language as a public hearing, maybe more appropriate.
So what do commissioners think? Should we do a list of items first to make decisions on? Or would we like staff to draft the regulation first and we work from that document? So there's 2 ways to do it.
I
So
feel like we already had that list and we discussed that in the previous meetings. And so to try to move this forward, I would feel that staff could adequately put together a recommendation, including height maximums and the things that are, part of the body of this, utilizing what you think with building code officials, what the best options are in terms of, as pointed out, certainly most of the homes have limited footprints, and above the garage is a really good option for many people. So looking at what typical garage heights are and what the increase would need to be to make that functional, and putting all of that language together so that, I feel like if we just do another checklist next month, we already kind of did that. And I think what, from all the discussion and what you included in the survey, where we feel certain things are important to include, and additional research with other communities as suggested to look at what they have and what's worked. I really think staff can adequately provide that next month, and we maybe look through it and not have a public. I mean, the public always is welcome to talk and speak, but that it's not where we're formally approving it to go then to commission. Does that seem acceptable?
That would be appropriate if the commission would like to proceed via that method.
Is that okay, everyone?
is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I think so. With an emphasis also on just what are other communities doing? What does their guidelines look like? So that we can look at ours, what you come up with and then say, okay, this is what they do at Kalamazoo or wherever.
Well, is
If it's-
Kalamazoo appropriate?
Oh, if it's been,
I know,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
But again, what does successful look like? Is that is,
Yeah.
it's different for every community.
Yeah, I do think it has to be communities that are similar in population and the type of fluctuation we have between winter and summer here. It's pretty significant really, so I think we have to look at communities that are similar to our community as a threshold of finding information, because hopefully there are some that have done this before. And if not, then you guys will create it and everyone will look at it and make theirs.
I think at the end of the day, our,
Done a while ago on that, but.
Yeah.
certainly we can-
I remember you guys gave us something at some point.
Yes.
It was quite a bit.
Yeah,
and I think, and when this all started, it was because the the city commission said, take a look at this and come up with, so in other words,
Yeah.
all these things we're talking about, it's gonna be a process. We have to consider it this way. I think it's just the
Yep.
most efficient way to do this is to take a look and come up with a draft. We'll take a look at it, compare it to what's going on with other cities. You give us that. And then after that, probably come back with some more recommendations, right? And then after that, maybe then that's the time when you would, we would have something formulated and then have a public hearing about it. So,
and I would hope that from the standpoint of middle income housing, that Mr. Ebert months ago had a suggestion that I think, at some point, it won't be part of the ADU discussion, but we really need to consider, we can look out the window at a building that has so many vacancies and could be a primo location for commercial turn to another use for middle income. So I really think that, he was at the forefront of coming up with that, and I know it's not allowed right now. Is that correct? Is that something that it's not allowed just in commercial only? For upper levels to be transferred over to a housing?
There are certain requirements that may be of concern in terms of floor area of commercial versus residential. So it would kind of depend on the current layout of the building may become an issue. But I do believe in certain commercial zone districts, it does permit housing on the upper floors, not on the ground floor.
Yep.
So there may be other challenges existing in the zoning ordinance in terms of accommodating that,
Okay.
but further research would be required.
Based on the city commission agenda minutes that I saw, they wanted us to look at ways to increase housing availability, starting with ADUs and then any other alternatives as well. So that's definitely
Yeah.
All right,
Good.
let's,
This discussion has been forwarded and discussed amongst staff as well.
Good.
It's definitely something that's.
Yeah.
so does staff have sufficient direction as to how to proceed?
I feel comfortable. It sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, the intent of the commission is that we draft language without holding a formal public hearing at this time, so that this can be more of an iterative process prior to opening a public hearing on the amendments.
Yes.
Bring back
And we'll
examples
bring
from
back
other-
examples from other communities, maybe some we've looked at previous, maybe some new ones, just so that we have a look at this with a wider lens.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
No,
Okay,
as long as
just
there's
direction.
concurrence and I saw everybody's heads.
Okay.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is public comment. Open the floor, come on up and behind the podium, state your name.
Good evening, all of you.
Good evening. You first state your name.
I'm sorry, my name is Hank Mason,
Okay,
and The article in the newspaper that talks about your survey may or may not be accurate, but I just wanted to check that first, and I have one question, so I won't take up your time. It says the purpose of the conversation is to examine the ADUs as an option to grow the city's housing stock. The city of St. Joseph, like other parts of the state and nation, is experiencing a shortage of housing units of all types. First of all, is that true? Are you working from that assumption, or did they report something that is not true?
I believe that's true. I mean, it is a nationwide problem. It is a city problem. And we've discussed here before that there is a shortage of affordable housing. And so, yes, that is true.
So what this, okay, I thank you very much for the answer, but what this says is is experiencing a shortage of housing units of all types. You just segregated that to something, a subset of that. I'm asking you, is that the problem you're working with the ADUs, or is it not?
So, Lori, as a commission, we are being asked by the city commissioners to look at ADUs. The reasoning behind it is not our purpose. It's here. It is to come up with regulations that would allow an ADU. Why it's being directed is not under our consideration. We're being asked as a commission to come up with those regulations. If in fact we were to implement it, what would it look like? Is that an accurate statement? So, and that is not an article that we wrote. That was written by the paper. So whether those are facts or not, I don't know that we can address those because we didn't publish those. That wasn't an article that the city or any of us had written. It could be accurate, but we don't know.
So there's no basis that you as the planning commission have to know whether the ADUs are solving a problem or not. That's not your purview. That's the city commission's purview, and I should ask them.
That would be my understanding, yes. We have our personal opinions, but that's not what the commission is for.
You're working to solve a problem and you're writing ordinances, but you have no basis to know that that's a problem.
Previous discussions included middle income housing. In previous discussions, there were documents handed out from Cornerstone.
The
things,
city
right?
commission, right, the city commission was looking at reports that were provided by Cornerstone, that talked about housing middle income was a big push from the city commission. And the reason it was directed for the planning commission to review, to look at, potential options for that. But yeah, as far as, and if you have public comment in particular, rather than questioning that, I think, this is your opportunity to make comments, but this is why the planning commission is looking at it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up and comment? Come on up.
Sandra Mason, 819 Columbia. I just would like to understand why all this is happening with 1%. I mean, you said 1% of the population responded to the survey, is that right?
Correct. It was with some percentage at 1.17% was the participation rate. Yes.
So why would you change residential zoning for everybody? Because half of 1% of the people think maybe that's a good idea. I mean, I personally bought my house after spending a lot of time sitting down and making sure I was zoned residential. I've lived in other cities where zoning has been very lax, and it's been very disastrous. So if you're going to take away my residential zoning, I guess I would like to understand why because the commission told you to look into it? Is that the answer? I just got?
Can I come on? First, the survey is only 1% of the population, but that doesn't mean that only 1% of the people approve it or disapprove. We just got, well, the intention of the survey was to get some input as to what would be the overall input from the public, because we needed to understand that. And to your point, do people really want this or not? But what the commissioners or the city commission is asking us to do is to propose a regulation. And that is what we're going to help draft. At that point, then it'll be open to the public to comment on it, so that you would come out again and say, you know, you're for it or parts of it and not of others. And you have that opportunity to do that. So that would be the process. The intention, if my understanding is right, is that we're looking for ways to increase the amount of housing available to people that may not have that ability to, because it's too expensive, or maybe it's in the wrong place. It's not well located. So the city is exploring these different options that are available. And you, as a citizen, have the right to provide comment, to approve, disapprove, thumbs up, thumbs down. But our goal is to write a regulation so you have something to actually discuss rather than just conceptual.
I think the other thing to point out is that there was more than one study that was done. There were things that have been done statewide, other studies as well, but any change that's made for the zoning ordinance should be looked at as part of the master plan. The master plan directs goals for the city and planning commission moving forward, and housing is certainly one of those. So, you know, that would be all considered as part of any change, any ordinance amendment.
I worked on the last master plan that the community was involved in working on, and there was nothing about changing residential zoning. So, okay. And my other comment is, having written surveys in my former line of work, surveys are written by people who have an agenda, and that agenda is real clear in the survey that was presented here, because you don't get to not answer a question. It wouldn't let you just, okay, I'm just not gonna go there. Every question had to be answered, and almost every question started out with, if accessory dwelling units were permitted, blah, blah, blah. So right from the beginning, you have the premise that that's what you're doing. It's not like yes or no, pick one. It's very much skewed so that the responses that you're getting start out with the premise that this is going to happen. And that's my other comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to come up? Okay, we will close the public comment portion. Do any commissioners have anything to comment and to add? Okay, staff?
I just had a few items for last month's sign application at 315 State Street. There was some uncertainty as to the exact width of the tenant space, as it was listed differently on the application as it was shown on the rendering. I had met with the applicant, Aaron Haight, on site, and we had measured the width of the tenant space, found it to be 32 feet wide, meaning the size of the sign that was approved by the Planning Commission was, as it was proposed on the application, was appropriate and met the ordinance requirement, and therefore the permit was issued at that point. Were there any additional questions, concerns regarding that?
Thanks for following up.
Yeah, that's good.
So it was within the 10% allowance that we said we could go up to.
Correct.
Good.
Thank you.
Harbor Shores Parcel 5, it was publicly noticed for tonight's meeting. But it was postponed on the agenda. I put to September 3rd. Speaking with the applicant, that may be pushed to October. It's kind of uncertain at this time. So that will be coming at a future meeting. Just wanted to acknowledge it since it was publicly noticed. And
Do you
then,
know what it relates to? Is that something that?
Yeah, I can say they spoke with certain residents who had questions, concerns regarding the project, and they were taking that input and they wanted to possibly adjust the plans based off of that. So they requested to withdraw for the time, postpone to a future meeting so that they can make some changes to kind of help make sure the development is more conducive with the neighboring properties.
Thank you.
And then the last thing that I had was a request for some very preliminary feedback on a possible ordinance text amendment to allow for low-intensity commercial uses within the R3 zone as a conditional use in association with a multifamily development. So essentially what this would be to, if you had an R3 zone property, it would allow, if you have built an apartment building on that property, potentially allow for certain commercial uses within that as part of a mixed use development, not on their own within the R3 zone. So let's say you develop a apartment building and you have a barber shop on the ground floor, a corner grocer, or yoga studio, perhaps certain uses that aren't likely to generate a lot of noise or impact on adjacent properties. The intent and purpose of this as a part of it is it would allow new development to apply for NEZ financing, which requires a mixed use component of the development of multifamily housing in order to meet those requirements.
What is the financing?
NEZC financing, I apologize, I'm not too familiar with the
Yeah.
exact specifics of it.
Okay, so it's state funding of some sort?
Yeah,
Grant or-
There's state requirements. It's where money will be returned to the developer. It's like a tax incentive program.
Yeah, so the intent of this item was to just get some early feedback from the commission if they felt this would be inappropriate change, if there are any concerns, you believe it to be inappropriate, any thoughts or concerns you may have in these very early stages of considering this possible text amendment.
I have a question. So would it be for new developments only, or could apartment buildings that are already established in an R3 also utilize this?
It would presumably apply to all R3 zones. So if you had an existing apartment building, you could renovate it such to have a commercial space on the ground floor. But at this time, no specific uses have been selected. So that may impact people's decisions in pursuing that.
So personally, if it promoted improvements to existing and also helped to finance new residential opportunities for our community where we have a shortage. And if the uses that are mixed use are congruent with neighborhoods and people being in places that, you know, they need to go to bed, go to work the next day, I would be 100% in favor of allowing it.
I'm all for it. I think we need more mixed use stuff like that where applicable.
I think we already have some good examples downtown at the corner of Broad and State of, obviously there are condominiums above there, but that commercial already exists on the main floor. And someone that's involved with that from our family's business, we don't have many noise complaints or things of that nature that have worked for several decades at this point. So yeah, I think this mixed use is always in my opinion, is a good use.
And we don't have much R3 zoning anywhere, right?
I don't have an exact number, but it is relatively low number in comparison to other zone districts.
It's not a sweeping change here.
Well, we do have, I mean, Lake Crest, Westview, the condos, Lakeshore condos is R3. We just approved R3, that area that was part of where Eco Technology was now in front, and being changed to an R3.
Hmm.
And
There are
we
a
have
couple
R-
downtown as
Yeah.
well.
We have R3 in the corner of Hawthorne and Lakeshore Drive. But we have quite a few units, but not a lot of different addresses, I guess, would be what they have.
Thank you.
So if we allow commercial businesses in an R3 zone, maybe I'm not understanding this correctly, with multifamily developments, does that mean there will be fewer housing opportunities, or are we taking away housing opportunities in existing apartment buildings?
This would not affect existing apartment buildings.
Okay.
No apartment developer would be required to add a mixed-use component. The idea is that by allowing that mixed-use element, it would allow developers to apply for additional financing opportunities to kind of assist with development, and create more mixed use, kind of considering things like walkability in the city.
But it will not lessen or limit housing.
The only impact I could see is if an existing apartment building, renovated some of their residential space to that commercial use. If it's something that's being considered, we'd have to think pretty carefully about how to draft it, so the impact wouldn't be unintended, to really cause harm, but you'd want to make sure it's pretty limited. New units, they don't have it now anyway, so I don't see that as really being an impact.
Would it provide funding for potential buildings that currently are not R3 to then maybe change the designation so that they could have mixed use? Thinking about a building in particular that
Commercial building you're talking about?
pretty empty,
As a matter of
been
fact.
empty for a while, so would it give that potential that, or would it would only benefit R3 only? So it couldn't be anywhere else if it's not currently zone R3, more than likely the zoning couldn't change to accommodate it.
So we're of course in the very early stages. The idea was specifically the R3 zone. If we think similar language may be beneficial in other zone districts, we can possibly consider expanding
Okay.
the scope a little bit.
Okay, that sounds great.
Any other comments from commissioners? Questions? Okay,
Thank you.
let me get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We're gonna vote?
Oh. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
We'll get there.
Thank you, Trudy. It's still new to me.
You're doing fine.
Everyone's